The large classroom of the Interstellar Academy hummed with quiet chatter as students from dozens of different species found their seats. Each species carried its own unique traits. Some had translucent skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Others had multiple limbs that moved gracefully even when idle, and a few had wings folded neatly against their backs. The humans were few in number, and their presence often drew curious stares. Among them, a new transfer student sat quietly at the back, eyes focused on the desk, trying to appear invisible. The instructor, an older alien with 3 glowing eyes, moved to the front of the room and activated the large holoscreen. The students fell silent immediately. This was a mandatory xeno history lesson, meant to teach them about interstellar conflicts and the danger of underestimating other species. The screen flickered to life, displaying grainy combat footage. The instructor's voice was calm, yet carried a weight of warning. Today you will observe examples of human combat across various worlds, the instructor began. Humans have been involved in conflicts far from their home planet, often facing opponents much stronger, faster, or more technologically advanced. Their actions are unpredictable. Their methods are unconventional. The first clip showed a human squad in the ruins of a city, smoke rising around them. The humans moved quickly, ducking behind rubble, using improvised weapons with uncanny precision. One of them in particular caught the attention of the class. He moved calmly, almost detached, while chaos erupted around him. He communicated in subtle gestures with his team, and somehow, despite the danger, every move he made seemed calculated, efficient, and deliberate. Alien students leaned forward, whispering to each other. Humans were known for their resilience, but seeing them in action like this was something else entirely. Some whispered with a hint of fear, others with astonishment.
That human...
Is he special? One alien student asked, nudging their neighbor. Apparently not, the neighbor whispered back. All humans are like this, or so they say. The second clip appeared, this time showing a human fighting in a frozen wasteland. The temperature was below 0, yet the human's movements were unaffected by frostbite or exhaustion. He scaled icy cliffs to gain a strategic advantage, and when confronted by a larger, heavily armored alien warrior, he dodged and countered with precise strikes. Every motion displayed a mix of strength, agility, and quick thinking. Once again, the same human seemed to appear, his face partially obscured by a helmet. But his stance, his timing, everything about him was familiar to those paying attention. By the third clip, some students began murmuring nervously. This time, the humans were in a low-oxygen environment, barely able to breathe. Yet even here, they adapted quickly. They rigged their surroundings to create traps, used limited resources with creativity, and remained focused even as the alien forces they faced tried to overwhelm them. One human, again the same one, was visible in almost every action. His calm under pressure, his ability to see opportunities where others saw only danger, made him appear almost unreal. In the back of the classroom, the new human transfer student felt a slight tightening in his chest. He hadn't expected to see these particular clips. Not here, not now. But the instructor continued, oblivious to the unease spreading through the room.
These humans, the instructor continued, have been involved in conflicts that many species consider impossible to survive. Observe their adaptability, their persistence, and
their unpredictability. The footage switched again, showing human combatants in spacesuits fighting in zero gravity. The alien students gasped as they saw humans using handholds, improvised tools, and clever tactics to outmaneuver opponents who were larger, more numerous, and better armed. Once more, the same human could be seen directing his team, taking risks that seemed reckless, yet somehow always achieving success. A murmur spread across the classroom. The students began exchanging glances, as if trying to piece together a puzzle. There was an unspoken realization building slowly. The human in the footage was not just any soldier. This human appeared in almost every clip. His strategies, his calmness under pressure, and the way he seemed to anticipate events before they happened. It was too consistent to be a coincidence. Several alien students, who had been skeptical about humans, began to feel a mix of awe and fear. Humans were supposed to be fragile compared to their species, slow to adapt, and weak in combat, yet here was evidence to the contrary. This human was not only surviving impossible situations, but he was excelling in them. Almost as if he had an instinct for victory that defied logic. By now, the whispers had grown louder. Eyes darted toward the back of the classroom, where the new human sat. He kept his head down, pretending not to notice, but he was very aware of the attention. Some of the alien students were trying to confirm a suspicion. They wanted to see if he was, indeed, the same human from the footage. The instructor seemed oblivious to the growing tension. These examples are meant to demonstrate how humans adapt to extreme conditions. Take notes. Study their methods. Notice the differences in their approach compared to other species. A sudden movement caught the class's attention. One of the alien students pointed subtly toward the back. Is that him?" they whispered. Others followed the gesture, and slowly, several pairs of eyes focused on the human, sitting quietly, seemingly unbothered by the spectacle on the screen. For a moment, silence filled the room. The human glanced briefly at the screen, then back at his desk, calm as ever. There was no pride, no fear, no excitement, just quiet observation. The classroom felt charged with a strange energy. Some students felt nervous, as if they were in the presence of someone far more capable than themselves. Others felt a thrill, realizing that the legends they had heard about humans might be true. The instructor continued the lesson, moving to a different set of footage. This time, the humans were shown engaging in guerrilla-style combat on a desert planet. Sand whipped around them, visibility was low, and their opponents had superior technology and weaponry. Yet the humans adapted. They used the environment creatively, set traps that relied on precise timing, and moved as a coordinated unit despite the harsh conditions. Once again, the same human appeared, calm and decisive in every clip. By now, it was undeniable. The new transfer student was the human from the footage, or at least, he was connected to the events being shown. Alien students began sharing quiet theories. "He must have survived every major human conflict in the last decade," one whispered. "How is that possible?" Another student shook their head.
"It's impossible! Humans are supposed to be..."
Weaker. The new human didn't respond. He didn't need to. His presence, and the undeniable evidence on the screen, spoke louder than words. The lesson continued, but the energy in the classroom had shifted. Humans were no longer just another species to observe. They were a force that demanded attention, respect, and perhaps a little fear. As the final clip played, showing humans navigating treacherous terrain while fending off an overwhelming alien force, the instructor concluded, "Humans are unlike any other species you will encounter. Remember this lesson well. Their methods may seem illogical at first, but they are remarkably effective. History has shown that underestimating them can be costly." The lights brightened, signaling the end of the session. Alien students slowly gathered their things, still glancing at the human at the back. Some were in awe, some were confused, and a few were clearly intimidated. No one spoke directly to him yet, but the atmosphere was thick with unspoken questions. The human stood, slung his bag over his shoulder, and walked calmly toward the exit. He didn't boast, didn't react to the stares, and didn't explain anything. Yet every eye in the room followed him. Somewhere, deep inside, the alien students knew that their understanding of humans had changed forever. As the door closed behind him, a few of the braver students dared to whisper to one another, "We have to work with him, or we risk underestimating the most dangerous species in the galaxy." And in that moment, the new human transfer student walked quietly through the corridors of the academy, completely aware of the attention, yet entirely unbothered. He had survived far worse. The academy, the classroom, even the skeptical eyes of hundreds of alien students. These were just another challenge, one he was more than ready to face. The lesson that was meant to show human weakness had, instead, revealed human strength. It was subtle, quiet, and undeniable. And the galaxy, slowly but surely, was beginning to take notice. The buzz in the Interstellar Academy halls was louder than usual the next morning. Word had spread about the combat footage shown in class, and about the human student who seemed to appear in every clip. Alien students whispered in corners, exchanged curious glances, and even paused mid-step to observe the quiet human walking through the corridors. He didn't react to their stares. He had long since learned that attention, curiosity, and even fear were all part of life among other species. As he entered his next class, the human noticed that several students who had previously ignored him now turned to look. Some of the glances were full of awe, others tinged with fear, and a few were outright challenge. They wanted to test him, to see if the legend was real. But the human simply kept his head down and found a seat in the back, far from the center of attention. He was not here to impress anyone. He was here to learn, and to survive the unique challenges of the academy, like he had survived so many others. The classroom was filled with students from dozens of worlds. Their appearance alone was enough to remind him that he was outnumbered. But numbers had never been a problem for humans. It was strategy, calm thinking, and adaptability that mattered. As the lesson began, the instructor, a tall alien with golden eyes, noticed the whispers and sideways glances directed at the human. He did not comment, but the energy in the room was palpable. Today, the instructor said, we will engage in a practical simulation. You will be assigned to teams, and each team must complete a challenge designed to test coordination, adaptability, and leadership. Pay close attention. History has shown that species who fail to adapt are quickly removed from the field. The students were divided into groups, and the human found himself partnered with a mix of species he had never encountered before. One was a four-armed warrior from a desert world, another was a nimble alien from a low-gravity planet, and the third was a heavily armored creature with claws capable of piercing metal. The challenge was simple in description but deadly in practice. Infiltrate a mock enemy base, disable their defenses, and retrieve a data module, all within a set time frame while being constantly attacked by automated drones. The team huddled together, awkward at first. Alien students assumed that the human would be reckless or slow. One whispered to another, "Humans are usually slow to react. We should lead." But the human merely observed. His eyes scanned the environment, noting obstacles, enemy placements, and the strengths and weaknesses of his teammates. As the simulation began, chaos erupted. Drones swarmed, alarms blared, and the simulated environment shifted dynamically. Many students froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. The human stepped forward calmly, issuing clear instructions. He didn't shout, he didn't demand attention. He simply directed his team where to go, when to move, and how to use their abilities in coordination. The four-armed warrior initially bristled at being given instructions by a human, but seeing the calm logic behind every command, he quickly followed. The nimble alien moved silently, setting traps exactly where the human had indicated. Even the heavily armored creature, who had been slow to react, found purpose under the human's direction. Every move was precise, every decision measured. The drones, designed to overwhelm even advanced species, began to falter under the coordinated strategy. The team moved as one, anticipating attacks, using the environment to their advantage, and covering each other's weaknesses. Some of the alien students observing from the simulation control room began to whisper, "He's incredible," one said. "I thought humans were weak, but this is something else." The simulation increased in intensity. Automated defenses adapted to the team's tactics, forcing them to improvise on the spot. The human remained calm, analyzing patterns and predicting enemy responses. He made small adjustments in real time, moving teammates to safety, guiding them around obstacles, and exploiting the weaknesses of the simulation's algorithms. At one point, the heavily armored creature was cornered by multiple drones. It roared in frustration, unsure how to escape. The human quickly assessed the situation and pointed to a structural weak point above the drones. "Jump now and we'll push the drones toward the vent," he instructed. The creature hesitated, but then followed the direction. The plan worked perfectly. The drones were distracted, and the team moved forward without further incident. By the time they reached the simulated enemy base, the other teams were struggling, some failing to even enter the structure. The human-led team, however, moved like a single organism. They disabled defenses with clever use of the environment, bypassed security systems with calculated timing, and retrieved the data module without a single casualty. When the simulation ended, the classroom erupted in astonished applause. Not all were clapping. Some alien students looked shocked, others embarrassed at underestimating the human. The instructor, however, merely nodded and said, "History has always taught us to respect adaptability. Today, we witnessed it firsthand."
After the simulation, the human quietly packed his things, ignoring the eyes following him.
A few brave students approached him. They did not ask questions casually. They wanted to understand, to see if the legend was real. One of them, a nimble alien with sharp eyes, asked, How did you do that?" "We expected humans to struggle in such an environment." The human paused, considering how to respond. He didn't need to boast, but he knew he could offer insight without arrogance. "I focus on understanding the situation first," he said simply.
"Numbers and strength are only useful if you know how to use them. Observing, adapting, and staying calm, those matter more than raw power." The alien nodded slowly, impressed despite themselves.
"So, it's strategy and patience, not brute force." "Yes," the human replied. "Brute force alone rarely wins anything. Adaptation wins everything." News of the simulation spread quickly through the academy. Students who had once ignored humans now studied them with interest. Some tried to approach him for advice. Others simply watched silently, trying to learn by observation. Even the instructors began to take note. The human was not only surviving, they were excelling in ways that no one had anticipated. Over the next few days, the tension and curiosity around the human grew. Classes that were supposed to be routine now felt like stages for him to demonstrate abilities, though he never sought attention. Alien students were careful in their behavior, unsure whether to challenge, befriend, or avoid him. Many chose to quietly observe, hoping to understand what made humans so resilient. In one corridor, two alien students whispered to each other as the human walked by. "I don't understand," one said. "He isn't using power like the others, yet everything he does is perfect." The others shook their head. "Humans, they are strange. They survive against impossible odds. Maybe that is why the legends exist." The human, hearing nothing but muffled whispers, continued walking, unbothered. He had seen far worse than curiosity. He had faced overwhelming enemies, impossible conditions, and situations designed to test the limits of survival. The academy was just another challenge, and one he would overcome without struggle. Meanwhile, the instructors quietly discussed the implications. Humans were no longer a species to categorize simply as weak or limited. Their capacity for adaptation, their persistence under extreme conditions, and their ability to lead without coercion made them exceptional. In simulations, they outperformed expectations, not because they were stronger or faster, but because they thought differently, acted differently, and refused to panic. By the end of the week, the human had settled into a quiet rhythm. He attended classes, participated in simulations, and observed other students. Alien students still whispered and watched, but many began to respect him. Not all were convinced. Some still doubted, thinking the human success might be flukes or exceptional circumstance, but repeated simulations, careful observation, and his calm composure slowly dismantled skepticism. One day, after a particularly challenging tactical exercise, a group of alien students finally approached him together. They were nervous, unsure of how to act around someone so capable. The human listened patiently as one of them spoke. We want to learn from you," they said. "We want to understand how humans survive when others fail." The human smiled faintly, not with arrogance, but with quiet acknowledgement. "Then watch carefully. Adaptation, observation, and calm action matter more than strength or numbers. Everything else follows." From that day forward, the human student became both a figure of fascination and inspiration. He did not seek attention, but attention followed him. Every simulation, every lesson, every small success reinforced the quiet truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were adaptable, clever, and unstoppable when necessary. And as the Academy continued its lessons, watched by students of countless species, one thing became clear. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and the consequences of that underestimation were only just beginning to unfold. The Interstellar Academy had grown quieter over the past few days, but the tension in the air was thick. Word of the human students' performance in the simulations had spread through the entire academy. Every student, from the timid newcomers to the elite veterans, was aware of him. They did not openly challenge him, yet, but their curiosity and caution were evident. Some stared from across the hall, whispering to each other in hushed voices. Others avoided his path entirely, not wanting to draw attention to themselves. The human transfer student remained as calm as ever. He walked through the corridors with measured steps, his gaze steady, as if nothing could disturb him. He had survived situations far worse than whispers, sideways glances, and curiosity. The Academy, for all its alien diversity, was nothing compared to the worlds he had seen, the battles he had fought, and the impossible situations he had endured. He had learned long ago that confidence, calm thinking, and observation were stronger than intimidation, weapons, or numbers. That morning, the students gathered in a vast training hall. Unlike previous simulations, this one was designed to test every skill the Academy could measure. Leadership, adaptability, strategy, cooperation, and quick thinking would all be judged simultaneously. The instructor, an older alien with sharp crystalline eyes, addressed the students. "This exercise," the instructor said, "will challenge your ability to survive, lead, and adapt in conditions that no single species has ever fully mastered. Teams will face unpredictable scenarios, environmental hazards, and evolving threats. Success depends not only on strength or speed, but on ingenuity, coordination, and calm execution." Students were grouped into teams, and naturally the human was paired with 3 other aliens: a swift, cat-like scout from a low-gravity planet, a large, heavily armored creature with immense strength, and a telepathic species that could sense enemy intentions. At first they eyed each other warily. Some assumed the human would fail under pressure or make reckless decisions. Others were genuinely curious to see what he might do. The simulation began. The arena shifted dynamically. Terrain rose and fell, obstacles appeared suddenly, and automated drones activated in unpredictable patterns. Many students froze for a moment, trying to process the sudden chaos. The human, however, did not hesitate. He scanned the environment quickly, noting the drone's patterns, the layout of the terrain, and the capabilities of his teammates. "Scout," he said calmly, pointing toward a narrow passage. "Use your agility to flank from the right." "Strength," he continued, addressing the armored teammate. "Cover the center and block any drones that come through. Telepath, monitor the drones' movements and alert us if they deviate from their path." The other 3 followed, a little surprised at the clarity and precision of his commands. The human did not shout, did not demand attention, and did not flaunt his skills. He simply analyzed the situation and directed the team with quiet authority. As they moved, the drones adapted. They split into multiple paths, trying to overwhelm the team. The scout moved with incredible speed, darting through narrow corridors to draw attention away. The armored creature held the center, absorbing attacks and creating space for the team. The telepath relayed precise information about the drone's intentions. The human anticipated every obstacle. He redirected teammates subtly, using small gestures and short commands. He exploited weaknesses in the drone's programming and adjusted their strategy on the fly. When a trap triggered unexpectedly, he saw it seconds before it became a threat and guided the team to safety. Students observing from the control room were stunned. "Look at him," one whispered. "He isn't just surviving. He's controlling the entire simulation without breaking a sweat." The simulation increased in difficulty. Environmental hazards were added, collapsing floors, smoke screens, and areas with low oxygen. Most teams struggled to adapt. Panic spread quickly, mistakes multiplied, and many failed to reach critical objectives. Yet the human-led team remained composed. He guided his team to use the terrain to their advantage, avoid traps, and turn potential disasters into opportunities. At one point, the scout was trapped behind a wall of drones, low on energy, and about to be overwhelmed. The human quickly scanned the area and noticed a narrow ventilation shaft above. He pointed and said, "Climb through the shaft. Strength, push the drones toward the vent when the scout passes. Telepath, redirect drones away from the path." The plan worked perfectly. The scout escaped, and the drones were funneled into a trap set by the armored teammate. Other teams watched in awe as this strategy unfolded flawlessly under pressure. The human's calmness and observation had turned near disaster into a precise victory. The climax of the simulation arrived when the team reached the core of the enemy base. Automated defense systems activated, designed to be impossible for most teams to disable. Lasers scanned the room, security bots patrolled, and the environment shifted unpredictably. Panic set in for other students, but not for the human. He analyzed the layout, noticed patterns in the security system, and guided his team with exact timing. Scout, create a distraction on the left. Strength, block the center. Telepath, signal if anything moves differently. "I'll handle the main panel," he said quietly. He moved with efficiency, using minimal effort to complete complex tasks. The other three followed without hesitation, performing at their peak because they trusted the human's direction. Within moments, the core was disabled, the threat neutralized, and the objective secured. The simulation ended. Every observer in the control room was silent for a moment, then erupted into applause. Not all were clapping. Some were in disbelief, some embarrassed by underestimating the human, and others were simply awed. Even the instructors looked impressed, nodding to one another in quiet recognition. After the exercise, students approached the human cautiously. They wanted answers, to understand what they had just witnessed. One of them, a timid alien with wide eyes, asked, How did you stay so calm? We were panicking, and yet you controlled everything." The human considered carefully. He didn't want to boast. "Chaos is part of life," he said simply. "Panic is easy. Observation, planning, and calm action. Those are what make the difference. You survive by staying focused, thinking clearly, and adapting to what happens." Another student, a tall alien with 6 arms, asked, "So humans, you win by not giving up?" "Yes," the human said. "Persistence matters more than raw strength. Observe, learn. Blood.
Adapt, and never stop moving forward."
News of the simulation spread throughout the academy. Humans were no longer seen as just another species. They were recognized as adaptable, clever, and capable of leadership under impossible circumstances. Students who had once doubted them now sought to learn from the human, either by watching, asking questions, or following him during exercises. The human, however, remained humble. He did not seek attention. He did not want to prove himself to anyone. He simply applied what he had learned from years of survival: focus, observation, calm under pressure, and clever adaptation. His abilities were not just skill. They were a mindset, a way of approaching challenges that other species rarely considered. In the following days, the human participated in more simulations. Each one tested different aspects of skill, teamwork, decision-making, resource management, and improvisation. Every time, the results were the same. He remained calm, adaptable, and efficient. Teams that had previously doubted him began to rely on him. Instructors began to take notes, quietly studying his methods to understand the human advantage. One evening, after a particularly intense session, the human walked alone through the academy gardens. Alien students watched from a distance, whispering to each other. Some were curious, some were inspired, some were afraid. Yet the human did not notice. He thought about the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned. Survival, adaptability, and calm thinking were always more important than the opinions of others. A young alien approached him cautiously. "Human," they said, "why don't you show off more? You could dominate any exercise, and everyone would notice." The human shook his head. "That isn't why I'm here. Winning by showing off is temporary. Understanding, adapting, and helping others succeed, that lasts. That's what matters." The alien nodded slowly, clearly impressed. "So, you help your team, not yourself?" "Yes," the human said simply. "Success is meaningless if it doesn't help those around you survive. That is the real advantage." By the end of the week, the human had become more than a student. He had become a quiet legend. Every simulation, every exercise, and every lesson reinforced the truth. Humans were not the weakest species in the galaxy. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary leadership under pressure. Their strength was not in brute force, but in observation, planning, and refusal to give up. Alien students who had once doubted him now sought to learn from him. Others still avoided him, unsure whether to challenge or respect him. And the instructors who had long treated humans as minor curiosities now regarded him with careful attention. In one final moment that week, the human stood on the training field, watching a new simulation begin. He did not feel pressure, nor fear, nor the need to prove himself. He simply observed as he always did, ready to adapt and succeed, as humans had done for centuries. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but that underestimation would always be a mistake. And in the quiet corridors of the Interstellar Academy, one truth became increasingly clear. Humans did not rely on strength, speed, or power to survive. They relied on observation, intelligence, and calm determination. Qualities that, when combined, made them unpredictable, unstoppable, and quietly legendary. The Interstellar Academy had never felt so alive. Students from countless species moved through the halls, each whisper, glance, and gesture carrying the unspoken acknowledgement of one fact: humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. The quiet human transfer student had become the center of attention without ever seeking it. His calmness, intelligence, and ability to lead had changed the way students and instructors alike viewed humanity. The week began with a special announcement from the instructors. The Academy had arranged a high-level simulation combining multiple classes, designed to test the strongest and most strategic teams across the campus. The exercise was unprecedented. Teams would face unfamiliar environments, unexpected hazards, and competitors from different species. The human student's team was automatically selected, based on his performance in previous exercises. As the students gathered, alien whispers spread like wildfire. "He is going to lead again," one said. "Do you think he can succeed against this many species?" another asked. Some feared the challenge. Others were eager to witness it firsthand. Despite all the attention, the human remained calm. He did not need to prove anything. Observation, strategy, and adaptation had always been enough. The simulation began. The arena was massive, shifting constantly between jungle, urban ruins, and low-gravity environments. Teams scattered, some immediately panicking, others cautiously advancing. Drones, automated traps, and unpredictable hazards forced students to think quickly. Many species struggled to coordinate with each other, their instincts clashing under stress. The humans' team, however, moved with a quiet synchronicity that others noticed immediately. He assessed the team's strengths and weaknesses with rapid efficiency. The scout moved quickly through tight spaces, able to access points others could not. The armored creature provided both offense and defense, a living shield against attacks. The telepath relayed enemy movements and hazards, and the human, without raising his voice or showing panic, orchestrated all of it. Scout, create a diversion near the eastern entry. Armored, follow the central corridor and secure the path. Telepath, monitor for anomalies and signal me immediately, he said. His instructions were simple, precise, and perfectly timed. The team executed flawlessly. The diversion worked, drawing enemy drones away from the main group. The armored teammate blocked advancing obstacles, and the telepath relayed information in real time. The human moved through the arena with purpose, solving problems as they appeared, turning potential disasters into opportunities for advancement. Students observing from the sidelines were in awe. "I've never seen anyone do that," one whispered. "It's not just skill, it's something else entirely." Another added, "He doesn't just survive, he makes everyone around him better." Midway through the simulation, the team encountered a trap unlike any they had faced before. The ground beneath them began to shift, creating gaps and unstable platforms. Drones activated in a coordinated attack, attempting to separate the team and isolate the human. Many teams watching froze, unable to cope with the sudden complexity. The human, however, analyzed the shifting platforms and enemy patterns instantly. Armored, hold the center. Scout, use the upper platforms to flank. Telepath, guide us across gaps safely, he said. He moved with precise timing, jumping across unstable terrain and adjusting his steps as platforms tilted. Every movement was calculated, every action measured. The other team members followed, trusting his guidance completely. By the time they reached the simulated enemy base, other teams had suffered significant losses. The humans' team, in contrast, moved as one, having neutralized hazards, traps, and drones with minimal effort. They reached the central core, a heavily fortified structure designed to be almost impossible to infiltrate. Other teams watched in disbelief. How had one human led his team to achieve what others could not? The core presented a final challenge, a complex puzzle of security locks, timed mechanisms, and surveillance drones. Most teams faltered, their members panicking or making mistakes under pressure. The human, however, remained calm. He analyzed the pattern, predicted the sequence, and directed his team with quiet authority. Scout, disable the perimeter sensors. Armored, hold the entry point. Telepath, monitor any unusual drone behavior. I'll handle the core locks, he said. Each member moved with precision, executing their tasks without hesitation. Within minutes, the core was deactivated, and the objective secured. When the simulation ended, silence filled the arena for a moment. Then, applause erupted, not just for the team, but specifically for the human student. Instructors, veterans, and students alike recognized that what they had witnessed was more than just skill. It was human ingenuity, calm under pressure, and adaptability in action. The human, standing quietly as others celebrated, did not react to the attention. He had no need to. There, success for him was not about recognition. It was about achieving the goal while ensuring everyone around him survived. His presence had transformed the perception of humans in the academy. Over the next few days, the academy itself changed subtly. Alien students who had once underestimated humans now sought to understand them. They watched carefully during simulations, asked questions about strategy, and tried to observe the human's thought process. Some began to mimic his methods, learning to prioritize observation, adaptation, and calmness over brute force or speed. Even the instructors acknowledged the shift. Humans could no longer be classified as weak or unreliable. They were adaptable, clever, and capable of leading under impossible circumstances. One instructor commented quietly to another, "We have underestimated them for too long. Their ability to survive and adapt is remarkable." The human's influence extended beyond the classroom and training fields. In informal gatherings, students sought his advice on problem-solving and strategy. He did not dictate or command. He guided subtly, offering insights that encouraged others to think independently. In doing so, he fostered teamwork and resilience in a way no one else could. A week later, a new challenge was announced, a mixed-species wargame designed to simulate large-scale conflict. Multiple teams would compete across a vast battlefield, and success would depend on leadership, strategy, and quick adaptation. Many students feared the complexity of the exercise, but the human approached it as he always did, calmly, logically, and with complete focus. When the war game began, chaos erupted immediately. Terrain shifted unpredictably, environmental hazards appeared, and automated enemies adapted constantly. Panic spread among most teams, but the human led his group with quiet precision. He observed, analyzed, and adjusted tactics in real time. The other members moved efficiently because they trusted his direction, and his calmness prevented mistakes under pressure. By the end of the game, his team had not only survived but had completed every objective flawlessly. Other teams were left stunned. Many students openly acknowledged that they had never seen strategy, adaptability, and leadership combined so perfectly. The human had not relied on strength, weapons, or luck. He had relied on observation, analysis, and calm execution, qualities that made humans unpredictable, unstoppable, and quietly legendary. The final debriefing emphasized what the students had witnessed. Instructors highlighted the human's methodical approach, his ability to adapt under pressure, and his capacity to enhance the performance of his teammates. Observers noted that the human had demonstrated the very essence of survival, calm thinking, adaptability, and a refusal to give up. Even those who had doubted him now sought his guidance. Alien students from other teams quietly asked for advice, hoping to improve their own performance in future simulations. And yet, the human remained modest. He did not claim credit for others' success. He simply observed, guided, and adapted, ensuring the team's survival and growth. By the end of the week, the academy had transformed. Humans were no longer seen as fragile or weak. They were recognized as clever, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary leadership. The human transfer student had achieved more than victories in simulations. He had changed perceptions, inspired others, and demonstrated that human ingenuity and resilience were unmatched. In quiet moments, the human would walk through the academy halls, noticing the respect, curiosity, and awe in the eyes of those around him. Yet he remained focused on learning, observing, and preparing for challenges ahead. The galaxy might continue to underestimate humans, but that underestimation would always be a mistake. As he passed a group of students discussing strategy, one whispered, "He doesn't just win. He teaches us how to think differently." Another added, "Humans are unpredictable in the best way. We've underestimated them for too long." The human continued walking, silent and calm. He had no need to prove himself further. His actions, observations, and quiet leadership had spoken louder than words. The academy, the students, and the instructors had all witnessed the truth. Humans were not only survivors, they were innovators, leaders, and the quiet force that could change the course of events in any situation. And as the sun set over the vast academy grounds, one thought echoed quietly among the students and instructors alike. Humans were extraordinary, not because of raw power, not because of technology, but because of their ability to observe, adapt, and survive against all odds. The human transfer student walked on, ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at him next. He knew that others would continue to underestimate humans, but that was acceptable. Humans thrived where others doubted them. They survived where others failed. And they endured where others gave up. The legend of humans, quiet, clever, and unstoppable, was only just beginning.